Church basement food has a reputation. Dry casseroles. Weak coffee. Dishes nobody wanted to take home. But the cooks who ran those church suppers once fed entire towns on budgets most of us cannot imagine. Number 17 kept 60 people fed on what most of us spend on a single lunch. And number 3 has vanished so completely that most Americans have never heard its name. Even though it was once everywhere, some of these recipes are strange. Some of them are humbling. Count down the 25 forgotten church supper recipes that once fed entire towns for pennies. Number 25. Shipwreck casserole. The name came from the method whatever survived the week, layered together and baked until it held pop. Every church in the rural Midwest had its own version of this. Raw potatoes on the bottom, ground beef in the middle, a can of tomatoes across the top, onions, salt, whatever else the kitchen had left. It fed 12 people from a single pan, and every dish came back empty. Number 24. Tuna noodle casserole. Friday was fish day for Catholic parishes from Ohio to Alabama. And this was the answer. Canned tuna, egg noodles, 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, stretched thin, Velveeta laid across the top and baked until it went golden at the edges. It cost less than a quarter to feed 8 people from one dish. The fellowship hall smelled like it after the plates were cleared. Number 23. Green bean casserole. Before it became a Thanksgiving side dish, this was potluck food. Canned green beans, cream of mushroom soup, a handful of fried onions on top. It was the dish that showed up when someone had nothing else to bring and 20 minutes to put it together. Nobody ever left any behind. Number 22. Scalloped potatoes. The cost was almost nothing. Potatoes sliced thin, layered with flour and butter and salt, baked until the top went pale gold. Through much of rural America in the 1950s, the potatoes came from the family garden. That made this dish free. It appeared at church suppers from Georgia to Indiana, and it was never skipped. Number 21. Funeral potatoes. The name was honest about when it appeared: after a burial, after a loss, when a family needed feeding and couldn't feed themselves. Hash browns, cream of chicken soup, sour cream, and a cornflake crust baked until crisp on top. The women made it 10 pans at a time, set it on the kitchen counter, and left without saying a word. Number 20. Salmon loaf, canned salmon, crushed crackers, and beaten egg shaped by hand into a loaf and baked until firm. This was Friday food. Inexpensive enough that a church kitchen could serve it without counting portions. The moment convenience food arrived on store shelves, salmon loaf disappeared from every fellowship table in America. Almost overnight. Number 19. Porcupine meatballs. Ground beef mixed with raw rice, rolled into balls, and simmered in tomato sauce until the rice swelled out through the meat. That was the name. Ground beef ran 43 cents a pound through much of the 1950s. 1 pound stretched with rice. Fed a table of 20. These recipes fed hundreds of people every Sunday for decades. They worked, they held, they were passed down. That disappearance did not happen by accident. And it did not happen slowly. It did not wash away. It went when the families did. After World War II, America moved. Small towns lost their young people to cities, to factories, to suburbs that didn't have fellowship halls or potluck traditions. The women who knew how to cook for 60 people moved with them, or stayed behind, or got old. And the daughters who left for Chicago or Detroit or Los Angeles didn't take the recipe cards with them. The cards stayed in kitchen drawers. The drawers stayed in houses that slowly emptied. Then Swanson and Kraft arrived on television with something simpler, something you didn't need to know how to cook, something that told you the old way was the hard way. And the recipe cards never got opened again. The next 9 on this list show you exactly what was inside them. Number 18, tamale. Texas church kitchens borrowed this from Mexican-American neighbors who had been making it longer than anyone could say. Ground beef, canned tomatoes, corn, and a cornmeal layer spread across the top and baked until firm. It cost 16 cents to feed 6 people. The congregation ate it without needing to know its history. Number 17, hot dish, cream of mushroom soup, egg noodles, canned vegetables. Whatever protein was available, layered and baked. Every fellowship hall from Minnesota to Kansas had a version, and every version fed everyone who showed up, 60 people. 1 pan, the cost of a single lunch today. Number 16, Italian baked pasta. Italian immigrants in the industrial Northeast carried this into parish culture. Pasta, tomato sauce, ground beef, and cheese baked in a pan deep enough to feed 30. In those Italian congregations, this was on the table. Every potluck from October through March. Number 15, kapusta casserole. Polish communities in Pittsburgh made this through the winters. Sauerkraut, pork scraps, and raw rice baked covered until soft and deeply sour. The steam sealed in the pan. The pork came from whatever was left at the end of the week. Nothing was wasted. Number 14, German potato bake. German-American communities across the Midwest assembled this from what they had always had: potatoes, bacon drippings, sliced onions, and a pour of broth baked, uncovered until the top crisped, plain, filling, and built to last. Number 13, Spam noodle bake. Cubed spam, egg noodles, cream of celery soup, and frozen peas baked until the whole thing set firm in the pan. A church kitchen could serve it without counting portions because there was always enough. Number 12, Velveeta broccoli casserole. Broccoli, rice, cream of mushroom soup, and Velveeta baked 45 minutes in a pan and served straight from the dish it was made in. Church women across the South brought this to every gathering for 30 years running. Number 11, sardine casserole. For Friday parishes where even canned tuna was past the budget, this was the answer. Sardines, crushed crackers, and canned tomatoes baked together until the fish dissolved into the sauce. It smelled strong. It tasted of salt. Nobody complained, because everyone at that table understood. Number 10, mock chicken. There was no chicken in it. Ground pork shaped around a wooden skewer, breaded, and pan-fried until golden. It looked like a drumstick and cost a fraction of one. Church kitchens across Indiana and Ohio served this on Sundays, when the budget allowed something that felt like a celebration. Every recipe in the last 9 was carried to America inside someone's memory. No cookbook, no cooking class. Just watching and remembering and doing it again. Knowledge of this kind has one consistent way of dying. You lose it when the people who carried it stop living close to each other. After the war, families moved. Small towns lost whole neighborhoods to Detroit, to Houston, to California. The women who knew how to make kapusta for 60 people stayed behind, or grew old, or followed their children to cities where nobody had a fellowship hall. Then Swanson launched the TV dinner. Kraft put Velveeta on a new kind of shelf. They weren't taking anything away from anyone. They were just offering something that looked like progress. And progress looked easier than a 3-hour casserole. The people who made those casseroles didn't fight it. They were tired. So the recipe cards stayed in the drawers, and the drawers stayed in the houses, and the houses filled with strangers who never opened them. Number 9 is where we pick back up. Number 9, macaroni and cheese casserole. Not the box. Never the box. This was macaroni boiled, layered with sliced American cheese and whole milk and breadcrumbs. Baked until the top went brown and the inside set firm, it was the dish children remembered for the rest of their lives. Every church supper from North Carolina to Nebraska had one on the table. The children who ate it in those fellowship halls decades ago still remember the smell. Number 8. Saltine cracker beef casserole. Saltines stood in for every expensive ingredient they could replace. Ground beef, diced onion, canned tomatoes, and a pressed layer of crushed saltines across the top, baked until the crackers absorbed the meat's juices and turned the color of old copper. Some families in Ohio ate this every week for years. Number 7. Biscuit-topped beef stew. Ground beef, carrots, celery, and broth, with drop biscuits pressed across the top and baked until they puffed and turned golden. A full meal in one pan. Assembled from the cheapest cuts and vegetables in the store, 43 cents worth of beef, stretched with broth and biscuits, fed 8 people. No church supper table in the Midwest went without this. Number 6. Chicken and rice casserole. Shredded chicken, usually what was left from Sunday's roast mixed with raw rice, cream of chicken soup, and broth. It baked for 90 minutes, while the congregation sat in the pews. By the time the service ended, dinner was ready. It was the most quietly practical dish on the table. Number 5. Cornbread casserole. Creamed corn, whole kernel corn, sour cream, and cornbread mix. Baked in a square pan, soft in the middle, golden at the edges. It came out of the oven while the women were still setting up tables. It was gone before the line moved halfway through. Number 4. Rice and ham casserole. Ham scraps the ends. Nobody wanted diced and mixed with rice. Cream of celery soup. And peas. Everything that would have been thrown away in a better year. Baked until the rice swelled and the ham worked its way through every bite. Number 3. Poor man's steak. Ground beef mixed with crushed crackers and milk, shaped into a thick slab, and left in the refrigerator overnight. The next day, it was sliced, breaded, and baked in cream of mushroom soup until the whole thing looked like something that had no right to taste as good as it did. It showed up on church supper tables from Georgia to Montana because every church and every town between them had someone who knew this recipe, not from a book, from a mother, from a grandmother, from a kitchen where wasting anything was not a possibility. Number 2. Chicken pot pea casserole. Shredded chicken, frozen vegetables, and condensed broth. Covered with biscuit dough and baked in a pan large enough to feed the choir, the ushers, and everyone waiting outside. This was the dish that took the longest to make and arrived earliest because someone had started it the night before. The table that held this was always the one with the longest line. Number 1. Creamed chicken on biscuits. Split biscuits on the plate. A ladle of creamed chicken poured across them. Chicken, butter, flour, broth. Thickened slow on the stove and served hot enough to steam. This was the dish that ended every church supper worth remembering. Not because it was expensive, not because it was complicated, because the person who made it had been making it for 40 years, and because they made it for everyone in that room, without ever being asked. The people who cooked these dishes are mostly gone now. The pans they used are in estate sales and secondhand shops, but the recipes still work. Every single one. They fed entire towns in church basements across this country for decades. On almost nothing. They did it without complaint and without recognition. These recipes are not lost. They are just waiting. If you want to keep one alive, start this weekend. One dish, one pan, one table. Subscribe so you have all 25 when you need them.